Good day, people. It's another day when we're recording Fucking Marketing Show. Bring on some people that I consider that they are doing funky marketing one way or the other. Maybe working for themselves, working for the others, or just being a good human being, trying to change the game of marketing or bringing it back where it belongs. So more ethics, more stuff that are related to the customers. And today I have a pleasure to talk with somebody that I've been going, back and forth in the comments on LinkedIn. Also, I think on some other platforms, maybe Product Hunt, if I remember something like that. And today we're going to talk specifically about, organizing content workflow in SaaS to kind of produce more quality content. We're going to talk about different strategies for SaaS. Today with me is Emilia Korczynska, who is currently head of marketing at Userpilot.
Hey, Nemanja. Thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, did I get the surname right?
Perfect. It was the best way I've heard my surname in a while.
Yeah. Because I like to just try not to ask people, but try to get it.
That was a very good try. Yeah. So
nice. I'm glad. So before we got into different things related to your career, what you do, those kind of stuff, I would like to go straight into the topic and go from talking about how do we organize content in a way that it can be sustainable. We don't drain our people, but we still produce more content in a shorter period of time. Like in our case, this is something that we've been doing with Funky Marketing. We managed to do it with 3 people, produce sometimes 4, producing up to 50 written articles per month. But there is one thing, because we're using also AI, so it's involved in the process. And I can share some of the things, but I'm interested to hear how did you organize the workflow in Userpilot.
yeah. I'm also very curious about your process, but basically in 2021, I had one job. That was to, create and scale the content department, because we basically noticed that content is the channel that drives most of our leads. So, why spread yourself thinly when you can focus your efforts on something that is already working? So I started off from a similar situation to yours, but that didn't work out for us. So hiring full-time writers. Basically, my logic was that Userpilot is a very technical B2B platform. I mean, it's not technical in the sense that it's like difficult to use, but it's a product growth platform. So it's intended for a very specific, specialized audience. Our audience doesn't, take content that has not been written by experts very seriously, right? So the topics we write about are usually complex. So it's like feature adoption, product adoption, right? News onboarding, secondary onboarding, et cetera. So we have used freelancers and agencies before, but usually they didn't produce great results. Because they weren't subject matter experts, so they would end up just like scraping the first page in Google and repurposing, regurgitating things, and the content was just like meh. It was like Me Too, mirage content a lot of times. So basically they didn't bring any added value. So I'm like, okay, so first thing, we need to build the team in-house because I can't rely on freelancers to understand the product, to understand the audience. That was my first hypothesis, which was, I will give you heads up, which was wrong. So we spent like 3 months looking for these, perfect unicorn writers that would be passionate about SaaS, would have knowledge and understanding of product marketing and product management, right? These are like already very, very high level skills. And that would want to write 3 to 4 pieces a month. Per week, sorry, not per month. So that was a lot. Our target was to publish 10 blog posts per week. So between like 3 to 4 writers, we thought that shouldn't be a problem. We found these people, after all. I feel like I just persuaded them to work for us. They didn't really want to be, full-time content writers. So they were like burning out double time, and 3 out of 4 ended up quitting in the first 3 months. So I was like, you spent all this time, like a few weeks, I think 6 weeks or more, just looking for these people. Then you spent a few weeks onboarding them, like training them in the product, etc., right? Setting up all the processes for these people, and then they leave. It was just really soul destroying. So at that point, I went back to the drawing board. And I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong? I started chatting to people like yourself. Not you at that point, but I talked to Gordana from Content Distribution. I
Yeah,
talked
yeah, yeah.
to, yeah, she's from Serbia as well. I
Yeah,
talked
they hired tons of writers, so a good person to talk to.
Yeah. Obviously, I was like, how do you do that? I subscribed to John Bonini's Some Good Content on Patreon. I talked to people in-house who are running, larger content in-house teams. And after a week or so of chatting to people, it suddenly all clicked. And I realized that it's process, not people. So somehow I borrowed the process from software development. So instead of having few writers write a lot of content, I basically divided the content plan into themes. So there's nothing new, content cluster strategy from HubSpot, and then assigned just one writer to each piece of content, a freelance writer. So that was a change. And instead of, trying to find perfect writers, I promoted the only remaining, a writer that we had in-house into a content editor. And we started working on processes that would basically allow us to scale, writing good content without hiring, super sophisticated writers. So how did that work? Can I show my screen, by the way? Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
just show
You should be
you.
able to share a screen. There's a
Yeah,
button
I
below.
see it.
You
I
see,
was
yeah.
just, yeah. So
Just have in mind that we are posting this also as audio. So
yeah,
just
okay.
try
All
to
right. Yeah,
explain
no,
some
no.
of the
I'm going to be
things.
doing, of course, audio description here, but it's just like with tying your shoelaces, a bit easier to show than tell. So basically, we
Okay,
arranged.
so here we are. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we arranged this content into these different topic clusters, right? So you can see there are like 10 topic clusters, and each of them has a content editor assigned to them, right? So this is the person responsible for creating the briefs. And inside this, we have all the different blog topics we are working on, right? And these in turn are assigned to writers, right? So then the writers get a brief, which is super, super detailed. At first, I was creating the briefs together with the other content editor. And then ultimately, we've developed a system and templates for briefs as well. So these days, it's much easier to create the briefs for us because we just have a template and then we fill them with talking points. So each brief consists of basically SEO meta information about the blog post, which we take from Surfer SEO, the word count, the keyword that we want to optimize it for, and then we put the Surfer editor there. I'll get to that in a second, why we decided to write all our content in Surfer. Introduction, some fixed basically elements. This is part of the template, right? So all the things in pink are templated, so the content editor doesn't have to repeat it over and over again. All the H2s, all the H3s, all the images, all the links, internal and outbound, that we want to include in the content are included in the brief. So the writer just needs to take this. They don't need to think, what they are going to talk about. And they basically write it up. The advantage of this is that we control the content and we control the quality. The writer doesn't have to spend so much time on research. We don't have to spend time on revisions and going back and forth. It works. And it's better optimized for SEO. Then, as I said, at some point we decided to add Surf SEO to our marketing tool stack, because this is a better way to optimize the content for SEO. Basically, the way it works, it scrapes the top ranking results for the particular keyword, and it cooks up this paint by numbers recipe for the writer, which keywords to include in which, like concentration, right? How many words, how many paragraphs, headings, images, all this is already there. Based on the top ranking content, right? So it's not best practices like some plugins like Yoast SEO would do, but it's actually this. And once, the content is written in Surfer, the writer pushes it to StoryChief, where they get feedback from the editor. So the feedback is in comments. I guess this one hasn't been checked yet, so there are no comments yet. But essentially, this is where the editor gives the writer comments if anything needs to be improved, if they need to elaborate on some points more, or maybe they didn't include something from the brief that they should have, etc., etc. And once that is done, we push this content to our blog, to our Medium with a canonical tag, and to all the social media platforms that we basically publish to with one click. But now the importance part is this is the Kanban board. So once the piece of content has been prepared by the content editor for the writer, so they created the task, they put it in the to-do column, right? The writer knows they have been assigned this piece of content. Each writer works only on one epic, so that's important. So they basically get more familiar with the topic over time, and they have only one blog post to write per week. So they have plenty of time to do that. It's very predictable. They know that they need to deliver the post every Monday, and they also know that every Monday they will find a new task here with the brief, with all the links they need. Once they start working on it, they move it to in progress writing, and once they are done with it, by Monday, for this particular epic, they move it to editing, and this is where the editor picks it up. Once the editor is happy with it, right, they add a payment, right? We have like basically payment system baked into Asana, right? Freelance payments, we basically give them a fee that's usually a fixed fee, right? We assign the month to this, that January, imagine that's happening now, right? And that goes straight to accounting, so accounting can filter, the basically, the completed tasks in a given month by writers, and they know immediately how much they need to pay everyone. So that also basically helps organize the workflow. And once the editor is happy with the content, right, they add the payment and they move it to proofreading. If they are not happy with the content, they move it back to in progress, and they leave a comment for the writer to fix, the problems they have listed in StoryChief in the comments. But assuming everything went fine, they move it to proofreading. And this is where another person picks it up. This is our freelance proofreader, who basically, as a native speaker, goes through the content again, checks for any language errors, also checks the content again against our SEO checklist. So a final checklist. Make sure all the alternative texts, all the alt texts have been added to images. All the images have the right titles. All the links that are supposed to have like no follow tags or do follow tags have the right tags, right? So after these final checks, only then the proofreader pushes the content to our blog and also writes social media posts and pushes it to social media. So that is the workflow in general. And it really, really helped us scale the content operations, because instead of having, single point of failure, so few writers producing a lot of content, imagine, if you have only two writers and one of them drops out for whatever reason, like half of your content is gone. You need to start searching for another person, train them, etc., etc. Here it's a lot more transactional. So basically, it's easier to replace a writer that drops out with another one if you have such tight systems for everything, really. So now we have documentation and self-serve courses for onboarding. So when we have a new writer join us, they go through the onboarding themselves. We don't have to work on it anymore. They have pre-recorded instructions how to do absolutely everything, how to use Surfer, how to use StoryChief, how to use our workflow, right? All the Q&As, everything. So, I feel like we could almost put an average intelligent chimpanzee there and they would be able to follow the instructions and produce good quality content based on the briefs. That's roughly it.
Yeah, sounds good, and I like how integrated even the payment system and everything. Like it's really clear, and I mean that's kind of the point of the system, right? So you can get anyone to go through these points, and you will have this outcome that you want to have out of it. Yeah, like I've been listening to you, and I have a couple of statements, questions,
Sure.
however it is. Like the first one is, you obviously found out that so many more companies have. It is that it's not easy to find writers that can write about SaaS, that can write about advanced tech things, deep tech, for example, like those kind of things, because my experience is that most of the writers would like to pay to just create like easy simple articles, those that they say they create for the SEO, right? Most of them know how to work in the B2C industries, so it's something else. Some of them have not ever been writing to the topics related to the complex products or services, those kind of stuff. And it's really hard for most of them to go through that transition and learn something about it. But I think it also goes back to if you're a great writer, you need to have a process of doing your research so you can get familiar with the topic. And if not, then I don't consider you as as a senior content writer that can do its own process and those kind of stuff. But and that's what lots of companies been telling me. Like we've been working with, for example, with Insider, and Leah from Insider told me, like, I've been talking with 22 different agencies, like 22. And this is like the first conversation that really tells me that you have been writing about those topics, those kind of stuff. And so it's really hard to find someone that can jump in. Like that was my experience also with finding people. I was able to find two, like Gordana, as we mentioned, from content distribution, Nick, and the whole all content distribution agency were managed to have a different approach and find more people, and that's really great because it works. It works for them. They managed to, I think, create the some kind of cooperation with the university, with people studying language, those kind of stuff, and I think that can really help in the process if you need more content writers. But for us, we started with one writer, with one let's say content strategist, and with one editor. So basically that was it. We added another writer later because we needed. But I think the main point is, and you also figured it out and put it in the process, it's create a great brief, no, show the content writer what you want to do, how do you want it done, what you want to get as the outcome of the article, what do you want to be inside it, like the outlines, Also, in our case, it works in two different ways. If you work with a company that is creating the brief, then we inform them what needs to be inside it. Or if we are doing it, then it's up to us. But so sometimes it's the company, sometimes it's us, and usually it's before we start writing, there are keywords we want to include. There's three ranking articles that we want to, so we can have an overview of what's been ranking so far. Then we have the outlines, and then we have the certain brief of what's going on inside it, and then we have usually three or four questions that we want to have at the end of the article, so kind of go through the topics that might be difficult for reader to understand. And it's the same because we started using what's the name today? It's Justin or something like, because it's not Jarvis anymore. Jasper. Yeah. They changed the name. And it's the same when you are writing with the tool, because you need to have all those stuff. I mean, you can create the outlines inside it, but you need to tell it before you start writing. I want to write the topic, an article on this and these topics. I want to include this and that, and I want to have this as the outcome.
Yeah, I
So
tested it as well.
yeah, so basically you need to have the brief, which is very clear before you get into it. And we've been working back and forth with it and come up with a certain process where we basically just have one sentence at each in each outline, and it helps us navigate Jarvis to kind of give us the best content related to that sentence. Usually we go and we do the research on the ranking articles, find that one sentence, maybe we rewrite it, something like that, and then we go. After we have the article, we basically do the editor goes over it, checks the grammar, does the proofread, all kind of stuff related to it. Then it goes back to the content strategist, who actually enters the links and links the article, maybe adds couple of visuals, or goes to the designer if we need to create them. And basically it goes to the client, so they can check it out and see if we need to add something more or no. But it's a bit different because we like to keep it conversational as it is possible. In the intro, of course, we need to give the overview of the article, but we like to keep it more natural as the flow goes. And we figure out that Jasper can write on very heavy technical topics. The client that I'm talking about, it's called user guiding. They do the user onboarding, and they have lots of advanced stuff over there. We managed to do all of it with the Jasper. Basically, the whole process that we created, they were involved in it, help them, how to choose the right people, the right content writer to hire in-house, and they were managed to hire juniors to kind of, when they have a process, just get them into those things and go and do, because they're writing really lots of content. They want to become the media company, as lots of companies want to do these days. And it really helps if you are producing that many things to have the team in house that can that you can lead to go this way or the other. But what is my findings out of it all is that basically the content writers are becoming the content strategists. Whether we use AI or we have the defined process without the AI, basically, content writers are actually the strategies that helps you connect different parts of the puzzle into the article.
I wouldn't agree with that, but
Yeah, that's great.
uh,
Finally, someone is disagreeing. I love that. So tell me more. Tell me more.
no, I mean, like we have a head of content, right? Who's the content strategist, right? So they are responsible for seeing the bigger picture. I don't see
Mm-hmm.
how the writer, an individual writer who's, a member of a larger team would, see, and I wouldn't like want them to be responsible for the overarching strategy. Maybe I understood you wrong, right? But we usually like plan our content months in advance, right? So based on the earlier results, based on new keyword research, um, based on conversations with customers, we plan like how many of different types of posts we want to create. We look at obviously search volumes, but we look first at intent. We look at also keyword difficulty. Can we possibly even rank for this? We also, when it comes to content strategy, it's pretty complex, right? Because a lot of
Yeah,
work
you also I
in-house.
guess you think about distribution before you get into the whole process.
Yeah, not even distribution. I mean, SEO is our main channel
Mm-hmm.
anyway, right? So, sort of the distribution is just an ancillary tool, but thinking about, for instance, rewriting certain content or merging certain content. Like when you produce a new piece of content, you don't know exactly how it will perform,
Yeah.
right? So it's a lagging metric. So the content strategist needs to monitor like specific key pieces of content, see where they are, how they are performing in SERPs, are they being outperformed? Because the landscape changes all the time. There are new people, new stakeholders joining the race to the top, and obviously you want to preserve or improve your position. So our content writers have to sometimes update old posts or merge 2 or 3 posts or rewrite an old post that is not performing at all. So I would say they couldn't be content strategists because they don't see everything from hindsight, and they don't have the foresight where we want to go, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with that part. And I mean, like content upgrade can sometimes be a much better solution than writing a new article. Actually, in lots of cases, especially when you're just taking over the whole somebody's blog that you haven't been a part of and it's been written before just for the SEO, and it's not, some things are maybe more developed or more advanced and you need to add more things to that. But what I was thinking is the
Mm,
development of the whole content writer role, because I don't think in the future, especially with AI development, those kind of stuff, that we won't have somebody who is just writing. They
mm,
will, in most cases, they will use AI to write for them. They will be just the one going over the AI, checking the facts, because it's AI overall. We don't know, if those stuff are real that is coming up with. So checking out those things in also is editing things, checking the grammar, all kind of stuff, and then of course doing the stuff before it even goes to the AI
mm,
tool. That's kind of not just the writer with does writing knows all of those other stuff, but also development of the role in the
mm.
company.
Okay, so you meant like strategy on more like content piece, individual piece level, right? They would basically
Yeah,
instruct the AI. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah,
There's
but will we lose the writing? I don't think so. Like the writing is something that is essential. It has always been here. Now we've been talking about is, like, I don't know, Gary V. We all will use audio. We will not write. Like then we had video instead, and we are still writing. And I think writing will remain the basics of everything that we do. Like I don't know how it is
mm,
with you and your team. Like I like to work with people that are all at least decent copywriters. It means that they know how to structure the text, how to structure their thoughts and everything, and it relates to the other stuff that they are doing outside of just writing.
yeah, yeah. I can totally agree with that. So I would say, it's even more far-reaching, like critical thinking, analytical thinking skills. That
Yeah.
is what makes a good writer, not, the perfect grammar, whatnot. So I have great experience with some non-native, content writers. Also, back to your comment on AI and how the writer's role will change. I think that in the future we'll also have a distinction between like elite writers who will actually write themselves and sign it with their own names. Because one thing that AI is not capable of doing, and I don't think it will for a very long time, is to have its own opinions and to have its own experience. So we need to remember that whatever AI produces has already been said, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty much, of course, it's said in a new way. It's not, duplicate content per se, but it's not original thoughts, it's not original ideas. AI is a machine. It doesn't have its own experience. It doesn't have its own struggles. So by default, it's not relatable. And people still want to engage with the writer. They still want to engage with the content on a more personal level to see that it's written by someone who has, been through the same experience as themselves. So I think there will be definitely value in more like high level thought leadership content, that will be more than just, sort of repurposed, super optimized SEO content that's technically correct, but maybe not so, personable. Um, and also, what you can do even today is basically ask experts for opinions. And, even if you're using AI to produce your content, you can still add the expert opinions to it. So that way you can improve the quality for the users, the readers.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those are great points. And I mean, now today the article is becoming something that is much more than just written content. Because
Yeah.
you quote other people, you involve their thoughts in it. You maybe a link some tweets that are talking about it, or use the Reddit thread or something else inside the article. You embed the YouTube article, the podcast link, those kind of stuff, and it's becoming a more complex piece of content than it is with just writing.
Mm.
And I think that's more and more as we basically do the content upgrade. We do some pieces of content that maybe will give additional value for the reader.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you are organizing the content. That will be my next question. But the way I like to do it, we have articles which are content which is totally not gated and open. And I am against gating things. But for
Mm.
example, like what I would gate is the research. For example, like we have an article that is talking about how to create the best landing page ever for SaaS, for example.
Mm.
And then we give them the checklist, or like 5 examples of great landing pages that have been working for us that they can implement right now, for example. Like those are kind of stuff that I would sometimes gate because they are resources, not the original content that we put out there. And it would kind of define if that person is really interested to go a step further. And and maybe it is a lead for us, not just somebody who has been interested in reading great content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I would say I'm not so much in favor of gating because like usually gating is used for building email lists
Yeah,
or
yeah.
building funnels, right? I don't know. We didn't have such a great experience with funnels in general because I feel like with every step of the funnel, people are dropping off.
Yeah,
Obviously,
agree.
right? Like I'm getting so many emails that I rarely open something, right? Once, let alone go through several steps. Like our target audience is usually so busy; they don't have the time to like be nurtured in that sense. So we kind of gave up on the idea and mostly give things away. The only way we collect addresses is for people who want to sign up to our newsletter, which I write myself, product rants. That's kind of a more personal, like basically storytelling, conversation it's mostly for inspiration and entertainment, right? Um, and lead nurturing is basically a natural byproduct of that. People connect with me, with the brand, because it resonates with them, or maybe even the opposite. They don't agree with some opinion I have, and that just like gets them thinking, and that they connect with the brand in that way. But yeah, in 2022, when there is so much content, so much newsletters, funnels, etc., I try to gate as low as possible.
Yeah, I totally
Mm.
agree. And what I said would be, for example, just 4 pieces of content out of the whole blog or something
Mm.
like that, which is like a great resource that you can use right now. And I don't mean like sending 5 emails after that, just sending one and saying, hey, this is the resource that you sign up
Yeah.
for. That's it. Use it. If you like it, please go ahead and tell us, how you like it. Or if you dislike it, let us know. Maybe we can do it better. And that's it.
Mm.
I like to do it that way. I also am not fan of the lead nurturing, those kind of stuff. I think we can do those things in a different way, kind of, in a feed, in communities, in one-on-one conversations, and we can use those channels to kind of get people to the next step.
So what do you do anything with their emails after you send the resource to them, or?
Yeah, usually it means that that they are interested in a piece of content.
Mm.
So basically someone from the team reaches out to them on LinkedIn and
Okay.
says, hey, you wanted that piece of content, we're going to send it to you. Just wanted to see if you like it, if you dislike it, give us the feedback. So starting one-on-one relationship, but not
Okay.
by sending them tons of emails, but involving the real person, which won't ever ask you, do you want to buy
Hmm.
what we are selling, but do you maybe want to do you need more help in implementing that, or maybe here are a couple of more resources on our podcast that you can listen to, that can help you do it so it works for you, those kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm also like to do that if we need to do webinars for some clients, because sometimes we need, and just related to the people saying that we go in, we implement demand generation right away, we go to the revenue. It's not happening. We need to
Mm.
first create the trust inside the company. It can last for a month, it can last for 3 months. When we provide results in a way that they were working before, then we can you know measure things and say, hey, these are the things that are not working, or maybe they are too expensive, we can do it in a different way. And then you go and do this stuff. But before we get to that, in most cases, companies have webinars, companies have MQLs, models, those kind of stuff. And I like to involve changes one at a time. So sometimes it's people who are listening to the webinar, I first stopped doing the sales webinars. They're all 100% educative. And then basically I have a person reach out to all the people that have signed up
Mm.
on LinkedIn, giving them, hey, you sign up for this, no matter if they said that they want to get the recordings or not, just, ask for recordings. I just want to see, if you want me to send it here or send it over there. And it's something that works very well. I learned that from Gravy and the way they are doing things, because that's how I got into conversation from some people from the company, because they
Mm.
reach out to me, hey, you've been on this webinar, would you like to get the recordings, those kinds of. I say, okay, but I'm also having a podcast and I would like to host somebody from your company, so can we arrange the meetings? And she said, yeah, let me arrange something, then reach out to the people from the company, let me connect you, what's your best email for that. And we got into the different conversations. So it means we are building the relationship, not
Mm.
going to transactional.
Yeah, that sounds good. Definitely, people are tired of being pestered on LinkedIn all the time, and so having that more personal approach is probably the way to go, I feel as well. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that's working, I think that might be a good thing for you guys as well, is, because I saw you using a polls. What has been working for us is creating a poll on a topic which gives us the answers that we have resources on. So
Yeah.
articles
Yeah,
or
we've done that.
something like that. And then when you reach out to people who voted on the poll, nobody ever said no. They say, okay, I'm interested in this topic. This was my vote, so I would gladly read the article, because you don't want them to do anything else. You just want them to read the article.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good idea as well.
So tell me, where do you see actually content going from here in, let's say, in this year? Because I've been talking with different people, like Erin Balsa was on the podcast. She said maybe we will see more big content, so more researches, those kind of stuff. She said she's not seeing them that much. Then maybe the rise of the influencers in B2B, especially in B2B SaaS. So people involved more in in bringing companies to the companies, and those kind of stuff. What do you see happening?
I think it will be boring, and I think we'll see more AI generated content in general. We probably won't, see it, because the whole goal is to create content that you can't, distinguish from human written content at a glance. But like with the research-based content, for instance, why we don't produce that much of that? Like it has a different purpose than the content you would write with your writers or even with AI. So if you want just the content to rank for a specific keyword, right? And you want to explain, I don't know, a particular problem and then the solution to this problem, right? Then creating research for that piece of content to back your claims up, of course, it would increase the credibility, but would be super, super expensive. So I'm currently working on 2 research-based pieces of content. They will be bigger, reports. One is state of SaaS onboarding, which we have been publishing for 3 years now. This requires us to sign up for a few hundred of tools, and then we have a checklist of the in-app elements they have. So we have our
Nice.
junior content editor actually doing that now for about 2 months. She's signing up for all these tools and then checking things off. Do they have a welcome screen? Yes or no? Do they have a interactive walkthrough? Yes or no? How many sign-up fields do they have? And then we look at the averages, right? And we produce a report. So the purpose of this report is not exactly to inform, right? But to collect a lot of backlinks, basically, right? So yes, of course, it is like awareness generating asset, because people want to benchmark themselves, right? So am I doing well or am I not doing well? The same with the other piece of study I'm doing myself this time, which is even more challenging, is the ROI of user onboarding. So basically, I'm taking a bunch of SaaS companies, setting up in-app onboarding for them and running an A/B test. So we see how many of the new users that sign up for their product reach the goal, so the key activation point, if they have in-app onboarding versus if they are left to their own devices. And we
Gotcha.
also cross-reference that with trial to paid conversion rate within these 2 groups. So it's an extremely, difficult project to work on, right? Very resource consuming. What you want is more than a few clicks from Google, right? You want to get loads of backlinks. You want to get maybe featured in some major publications. Maybe you want to do a product hunt launch, right? So of course you can repurpose this content for a lot of smaller like studies and add pieces of this research into your existing articles on related topics. But considering the cost versus the value and how much you then need to spend on promoting this piece of content, I don't think a lot of companies will have the resources to be able to do that, right?
Yes.
That's why we don't see that much of research-based content. But ultimately, I still feel most companies want to rank. They want to drive organic SEO traffic. They want to gain SEO visibility for specific keywords that are related to their product, maybe to their competitors, maybe to the solution they are offering or problems they are solving. Right. So for this type of content, AI is perfect. And I think these tools will improve because, as you said, to use Jasper, Jarvis Jasper, you still need to find your way around it. It's still, I found it, I was like, no, this is too time consuming for us, right? And the results it produced for us at this point, I didn't think it was worth the effort of um, learning the recipes. And like, I was just frustrated. I'm not a very patient person, to be honest, but I was just frustrated about like having to go back and forth and remove like repetitions and like use the formulas, etc. Um, it takes us between an hour and 2 hours to produce a brief, and then we leave it to the writer, right? The cost is not that huge. So maybe I will change my mind, but I think the AI tools still need to do some work on the usability, user friendliness,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, lots of them needs to invest more in that. And there is a comment we got offline for a second, so
Mm-hmm.
don't see it inside the restream. But
Okay.
Kyle says LinkedIn, I use AI for writing sometimes because I'm dyslexic
Yeah, I
as
see that.
fuck, and I find writing tricky. But using a tool like WordTune, I can tweak my writing to reframe sentences and get better results.
Mm-hmm.
So one more way to use tools like that for the people that have disabilities in writing and those kind of stuff. That's
Yeah.
that's good to hear.
Also, content repurposing, Jarvis, Jasper has this function where you can just like rephrase, a
Yeah.
piece of content. So you can use it, for instance, for your social media posts. So out of one post, you can produce 10 posts that mean the same thing, but sound differently. So people don't see the same content over and over. Um, so yeah, I definitely think we will make huge progress in AI tools and AI writing in the next, maybe if not this year, then in the next few years, definitely.
Yeah, one thing that I can recommend to people, but we've been using Jasper for is like use a sentence to kind of get the narrative or whatever you want to say, a plot, and then basically let him tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's this storytelling part over there, and it basically how it works is, imagine that you and I are working together in the office for the whole day, and there is one interesting thing that happens during that day, and basically it gives me that moment in couple of sentences, like like Emilia enters the room screaming like, don't write that content anymore, and don't use Jasper anymore. Then somebody else is coming and tell, can you explain it a little bit more? So you give your perspective. Then we saw a couple of examples, those kind of stuff, and it works really well. It gives you the situation when
Mm-hmm.
basically you have the open window in somebody's life for a couple of minutes, and you create the post out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
and those are the posts that we are not seeing anywhere on social media. So it's totally different when you have the discussion between people, you have specific situation. And I think, just wanted to get it out there so some people can maybe try it out and see if it works for them in a different way.
Yeah, sounds like an interesting hook.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because sometimes let's admit it, how no matter how skilled we are in writing, sometimes we have lack of inspiration or topics, but we know the topics, but we have lack of inspiration because like I talk about this every single day, and sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
need just the inspiration, so it can work for that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also agree about the research, the big pieces of content. I think what you're doing is great, and it's the sole reason for somebody to go to the Userpilot and see what are you coming up with, and that's what I like. It got me attached to the company. Those kind of stuff. maybe it's just me, but I don't think so. I think lots of people will get attached to the company if they are investing that kind of effort in producing a piece of content which is so valuable.
Yeah.
Outside of of thinking about SEO, backlinks, and that kind of stuff, but just the effort. You are having a guy or a girl, I don't remember what you said, investing 2 months in doing the research and trying things out and having all that put in a piece of content.
Yeah, and that's what I also meant is the difference between, like what AI can produce, right? And
Yeah.
what elite human writers can produce, right? So opinions is one thing, and original research, original content is another thing, right? Because let's face it, things go out of date pretty quickly these days, right? So an article published 2 years ago may not be up to date. If you offer fresh insights, right, into a particular topic, that's why we do this research every year as well, right? Then you basically are going to stand out.
I agree. That's a huge point for
It
actually going into doing those
It
kind of
also
stuff.
has to be actionable, right? So we picked these, and here content strategy comes into place. We picked these two pieces of research for a reason, right? So one is telling you, like, what is the status quo? What are the benchmarks? Are you performing better than the average or worse than the average in terms of, the experiences that you have? And the other one is talking about the real outcomes, the ROI of having these experiences versus not having them, right? So you can compare basically if investing in that type of in-app interactions with your users is going to help you, right? So if on average people who don't have any in-app onboarding have, say, a trial to paid conversion rate in B2B SaaS, we have like a free trial model, let's say 15%, but the ones that do have it have 25%, and you don't have it, you may want to, and your trial to pay conversion rate is, say, 15%, you may want to try if this would work the same way for you, right?
Totally agree. And I see, like when we are already talking about AI and those kind of stuff, it's I see a lot of companies rising which are just collecting the data and helping people, especially the C-level executives or people who are running marketing, what's working, what's not, to kind
Mm.
of, analyze the data and those kind of stuff. And okay, it happened again. Okay, it's
Not your
good that
lucky
we are.
day.
Yeah, but so anyway, just wanted to say that either if you're producing the content or those kind of stuff, you can use content, you can use AI, you can use human approach in a different way, whatever works for you, whatever resources you have for you.
Hmm, that makes sense.
Yeah, so tell me and all the other guys when they can find more information about you, about things you are working on, and where they can maybe get into the interaction with you, give your feedback on the stuff that they are doing related to what you just said and those kind of stuff.
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You may want to share the link to my profile.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I hang out quite a lot. So yeah, I try to publish posts there regularly as well. So just the random thoughts I have. Um, and yeah, I'm very happy to answer any questions. I'm also starting, it's still quite empty, but I'm starting a Patreon account where I will be, listing all the resources that we have produced, basically. That's something that I wish I had when I was starting out, right? That I didn't have to sort of produce the whole workflow, produce all the checklists, templates, etc. from scratch. But I will announce that a bit later, also on LinkedIn, because I haven't topped it up yet with the resources. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. You'll send me the link, so we will add it also in the description of the episode.
Sure.
And for the end, what is one thing that you can tell to the people, that can give them a practical advice or some inspiration or whatever it is on your mind at the moment?
Right. So I would say don't sweat it, relax, and don't worry too much if I don't know you haven't been able to hit your target immediately because content is a long game, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you really need several months to see the results of your work and appreciate the results of your work. As I said, I'm a very impatient person, so I was getting very stressed and frustrated, when 3 months and I still don't see the numbers going through the roof. Um, you may read all these LinkedIn posts that, oh, someone achieved 500% in 1 month. Yeah, maybe in their niche, maybe they are super, super niche. There's no competition. Nobody has been writing anything about this, right? And it's super easy for them to rank, right? Maybe they already had a very established domain. I was working on a use case like that a few years ago. In one country, they had very high domain authority, and then they entered another market, right? Like a local market in a different language where all the keywords were super easy. So when they entered with their high domain rating, international domain, they just blew everyone else out of water and ranked for all the top keywords and started raking in these results very quickly. But, just chill and be realistic as well about the potential you have in your content strategy. So look at the search volumes and then think, how many of these keywords are you really going to rank for on the first place in Google, right? That's probably going to be maybe like 10% of all the content you produce. That's already very good, right? You can measure it. You can estimate it pretty accurately. If you spend a lot of time on it, it's probably not going to be worth it. But just looking conservatively at the search volumes, think that only 37% click on the first result anyway, right, these days. And it declines so much with every position in Google, right? So if you're on the second or third or fourth position, you'll probably get only like 5% of all the search volume, right? So just estimate what is the likelihood that you will, hit your ambitious target, because maybe you want to drive, I don't know, 50,000 visitors to your website, but it's only possible to drive 10,000 with the content strategy you're working on. So be realistic, right? That's another piece of advice. Don't overestimate how much you can achieve with content. Don't pull a number out of thin air because you saw someone has done it. It doesn't mean that you can do it in your business. Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
it, I
that's
would
that's
say.
so that's so well said. I said that about all the advice that we give and we get from LinkedIn, because I think 80% of the advice that is out there is from people working in fast growing companies, tech companies, and it cannot be applied to all the industries. It cannot be applied even to the whole B2B industry,
Mm.
not in something else. So we need to take everything with a hold and see if it works for us. Do we have the capacity to do it? And well said about the content, and that's generally, I think, an advice that lots of people need these days to kind of relax and look at things from, just go over the basics, see what resources do you have and what you can do with that.
Yeah. And, having data, I feel like it's really empowering and helps you relax and actually not freak out, because when you have the data, how much you can realistically achieve with your content plan, right? You know your resources, you can calculate, more or less how much you can achieve after, say, a year, because we need to remember that the content will take some time to rank and maturate, right? And then you go to this with this to your CEO or your client, and you say, "This is what's possible," right? Um, and then you have some sort of, you understand how to get there, right? You adjust course on the way as you start getting data, but you don't, overpromise and underdeliver and then feel horrible because you just were shooting for the stars, and with, I don't know, a tennis ball, right?
Yeah, and talking about resources, kind of stuff. It's also the budget, is also the team, is also
Yeah,
other stuff that are over there.
resources.
So it goes from the top. Okay, these are results that do we have the capacity inside the company to actually achieve those things? Do we are C-level willing to invest that much of a budget that we need to kind of have those results? If not,
Mm,
let's go back to the drawing board and see what we can actually do with what we have.
yeah, totally.
Great said, and great points for the end. Thank you one more time for being here.
Thank you,
A little
Nemanja. It was
over an hour to talk
super
about.
interesting.
Yeah, I think maybe you can come back when you actually publish the research, so we can talk more about the
Absolutely.
whole process about that. I'd love that.
Hmm.
And guys, now you know what you need to do. You need to go back to the beginning of this episode, listen again to everything Emilia has to say. If you are listening this over audio, I think it would be good to go to look for the Funky Marketing Show on YouTube. Go and see, she shared the screen, she shared the how the whole process is going, so you can go over there, look at it. You can reach out to her when you don't understand something. And basically, one last thing is you need to keep it chill and keep it funky.
Exactly. Amen.
Bye bye.
Cool.